Welcome to the Metal Substance, the metal music series made for the eventual funding of a city philharmonic. I'm your host. Call me Victor. I encourage the practice of listening to metal while I talk about metal, which is why there is no background music. Okay, I know this is the one you all have been waiting for. Black Sabbath's Paranoid, the second album, about 40 minutes, 8 tracks, each of which is more of a classic than the one before. While most of the Metal Substance videos I intend to be standalone, I hope you are watching these Black Sabbath videos in order. With that said, I want to say these tracks have really stood the test of time. So I'm going to try to go through each of them, but doing it in a rapid manner. We're just going to jump in. War Pigs, sometimes called War Pigs / Luke's Wall. It's my understanding, speaking of walls, that Twitter users jump all over themselves to put this song on their wall anytime a war breaks out somewhere in the world. It's their way of helping. And it's immediately another example of Black Sabbath being a trendsetter in metal. Because you look at Black Sabbath, the self-titled first album, and they're talking about the occult there. They're talking about Lucifer and these mystical forces. There's literally the wizard, right? With Paranoid, Black Sabbath pivot into examining the real, the now. Now, don't get me wrong, there's fantastical elements in here and sci-fi as well, but War Pigs, the opening track on the album, is about the demons here on Earth, and it has become one of the most recognizable anti-war tracks, songs on Earth. And it gets covered by everyone. Just in the last year, the UK's own Judas Priest recorded their version, and so did Ethiopia's Ukandans. The most obvious inspiration for this song is the war in Vietnam. It's 1970. The United States, and by extension the Western world, are still embedded in trying to figure out a solution to the Vietnamese problem. About 40,000 American military members have been estimated to be killed by 1970. Hundreds of thousands of North and South Vietnamese military, not to mention hundreds of thousands of civilians. The Kent State shooting has happened. Sentiment among the youth in particular is turning against the war because the youth are not really interested in a war that they see as being prosecuted by a safe and sheltered elite, while the impoverished are asked to pay the cost of the war both financially and in blood. And the music in War Pigs is also deeply embedded in the blues traditions of the American South, with its call and response between the Ozzy's vocals and the rhythm behind him. Ozzy summoning the mass with his voice. Incidentally, what a power move, starting out your album rhyming masses with masses. Well done. Geezer Butler, don't know how metal could have ever developed without you. Really, I don't know. Anyway, these lyrics are so full of just vicious hatred. Evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction. In the fields, the body's burning. The war machine keeps turning. Politicians hide themselves away. They only started the war. Why should they go out to fight? They leave that all to the poor. Incidentally, I've seen it written both ways, that the line goes, they leave that all to the poor, and they leave peril to the poor. I've always heard it as peril. I guess that's neither here nor there. And after the lyrics of War Pigs, there's an extended instrumental outro, which is, you see a lot of that in Black Sabbath. I love it. And you see it a lot in metal as years goes by. The extended instrumental outro, Opeth's Deliverance, comes to mind. So something I wanted to bring up, apparently in the creation of this album, before Black Sabbath ever actually got into a studio, the band were in Switzerland playing at a club where they were asked to do like 6 to 8 45-minute sets a night. So they didn't have a lot of songs yet, and they would just play each song once per set. And so these sets essentially became live rehearsals for the band to work on things, presumably, especially the jams they do at the end of a lot of these songs. And you're starting to see other tropes of metal develop here. So, okay, what's the lowest string on a standard guitar? It's the low E string. And because it's the lowest, that means it's the heaviest in metal, right? So you want to be hitting it as often as possible, so you can show your maximum deep, maximum dark, and heavy. Well, Tony Iommi, he's doing this a lot in War Pigs because he says he wanted to keep that low string ringing out to kind of fill out the song. So, there's that part of the song where if you've done the riff, it's you hit the open E while fretting the fifth fret on the A string and then hammer on to the E note, so you get a double E sound, an octave apart. It's amazing. It's fun to think of all the generations of guitarists that have sat on their beds playing these riffs made decades ago. Classic song. All right, track 2, Paranoid, the title track. I'm just going to say, even Geezer Butler himself has said he had misgivings about the song being included on the album because it sounds very much like Led Zeppelin's Communication Breakdown from Led Zeppelin 1. We'll talk about Led Zeppelin more in a Rock Roots episode. Okay, track 3, Planet Caravan, a respite after a couple of pretty aggressive songs. It's kind of interesting in Paranoid how Black Sabbath is simultaneously trying to go harder and faster and simultaneously lower and doomier, just 6 months after their debut. So Geezer Butler, the bassist, he writes the lyrics of this one as well. He says Planet Caravan is supposed to be out floating through the universe with your lover. It's a track that goes heavily into a spacey sound like you're on a desert planet, or at least the desert sections of a planet. It's a very standout track on the album because it doesn't sound like the rest of them in terms of the soundscape. There's a piano on here. Bill Ward's playing the congas instead of his normal drum kit. And it's got a different sound, but it's still kind of doomy. It's like a funeral for a living man, if that makes any sense. Track 4, the famous Iron Man, no relation to the Marvel superhero, although they did use this in the movie Iron Man from 2008. But this is a story where Geezer gets into science fiction, and he tells this little 4-minute tale of a man who sees a vision of the future where the apocalypse happened when he traveled forward to see it. And so then when he's returning to the present, so he can warn mankind, the magnetic field of this portal or whatever created by the time travel turns him into a man of iron, so nobody listens to him. And then which leads to him in rage and anger lashing out and creating the apocalypse that he saw. So it becomes a causal loop. So he's two characters in the same story. I mean, it's not as complex as like All You Zombies, but you get the gist. The concepts are there. And its opening riff, one of the most famous in all of rock and metal music. So we're back in 1970. You've just heard Iron Man. It's time to flip the record over, hit side B, and immediately Black Sabbath is coming in with another song, The Madness of Man, all around them. Electric Funeral, which is a song about the prospect of nuclear war. At this point, it's 25 years after the initial atomic tests, the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, so a whole other generation has come up under the nuclear umbrella, right? There's a quote somewhere from Ozzy where he talks about the music that he was trying to create was something that he thought would speak to his own experiences, because it's time to go to the pop charts, right? Could probably do this every episode. Number one pop song in September, going into September 1970, was Elvis Presley's The Wonder of You. In 1970, that's nearly 15 years after he was recording Heartbreak Hotel in Nashville. The world still had no idea what metal was going to do to the rock world. For a sense of scale, 15 years after Black Sabbath's first album, 1985, you're going to see the releases of Possess, Seven Churches, Slayer's Hell Awaits, Stormtroopers of Death. No one, and I mean no one, had any idea the scale of the forces that were being unleashed. You know, Elvis is on there, you're always there to lend a hand. And then Ozzy's going, oh, brother, I got a hand for you right here. It's called Hand to Do. It's about heroin, isn't it? You shouldn't do it. No, don't do it, man. Yeah, Hand of Doom, another classic in the early Doom canon, probably a big contributor, I'd say, to the usage of the term. This whole album is about forging the metal canon, even though Ozzy himself always says, like, well, we were a rock band. You know, they were pioneers. The terms, always remember, the genre, the encyclopedic definitions, that all comes later. But this Hand of Doom, it's a longer song. It's slow. It's fuzzy. It's the building blocks of stoner doom sludge. All of that is getting laid down here, especially on side B. Track 7, Rat Salad. Anyone who knows anything will tell you that rap music is OP, especially in metal. And this is an instrumental where the story, again, it goes back to the club in Zurich, where they have to perform several times a day contractually. So apparently Bill Ward, to give the rest of the band some time off, he would sometimes do just a 45-minute drum solo by himself, and that's where Rat Salad comes from. And that's not really something I feel you see as much in modern metal. You don't see the extended. This is something that's from the 60s, 70s, where you'd have the drum solo, the guitar solo. That kind of fades out from common usage later, but I still always love hearing it here on Black Sabbath's records. Okay, and then finally we close on track 8, Fairies Wear Boots, famous for a lot of reasons, one of which is that in his autobiography, Ozzy Osbourne says he doesn't actually know what the song's about, and he is the one who wrote it. This is classic trippy metal, another doomy bluesy number, but it's got a nice melody to it. It seems to me to be about doing drugs. There is the line, smoking and tripping is all that you do. And, ironically, with early Black Sabbath records, people will tell you they're terrific to smoke and trip to. Not that I'm officially endorsing any illicit uses such as that. Don't break the law, folks. Officially, don't break the law. Unless the Scorpions have a differing opinion on that matter, consult with them, I guess. Anyway, there you have it. Yeah, it's been about 10 minutes. Listen, if you have any questions, please ask them down below or just come on into a live stream and ask me right now. I usually stream something or other every day. Remember, history will be written by the victor.